Welcome to my channel Alane Signal. The first thing the teacher noticed was the silence. It wasn't the ordinary hush of young minds adjusting to a new classroom, nor the awkward quiet of species unfamiliar with one another. It was a silence pulled tight as wire, instinctive, ancestral, and trembling. Instructor Varel of the Cooperative Educational Exchange paused at the doorway and allowed his secondary eyelids to flick down in slow consideration. Before him sat 32 juveniles from 21 member species of the Galactic Concord. Scaled, furred, feathered, chitinous, some perched, some coiled, some floated in gentle harnesses adapted for low gravity. The air was thick with the mingled scents of nervous pheromones. And in the third row, near the wide observation pane that looked out over the city spires of Harmon Prime, a young predator cub had just taken an empty seat. Beside a human girl, Varel's gaze sharpened. The cub was unmistakable, thick-shouldered even at this age, dense midnight fur broken by streaks of silver along the spine. Its ears, triangular and forward set, were tuned toward every movement in the room. Two small fangs pressed over its lower lip when its mouth closed. It belonged to the Kherathi. The Kherathi were not merely predators. They were apex. On their homeworld of Khera, gravity ran high and flora evolved toxins to discourage grazing. Prey had grown fast, armored, and vicious. The Kherathi had grown faster and more vicious still. Their species had entered the Concord only 30 cycles earlier, after a brutal first contact conflict that left 3 minor civilizations reconsidering the definition of defensive response. The cub's name, Varel recalled from the enrollment sheet, was Rax. And beside Rax sat Mara Alvarez of Earth. Human. Deathworlder. The Concord still debated whether to categorize Earth as Class 4 or 5 on the hazard index. Volcanic instability. Apex predators in nearly every biome. Pathogens that rewrote biology on the fly. Weather patterns that could freeze, burn, drown, or strip flesh from bone within hours. And the dominant species, omnivorous primates who had looked at all of that and decided to build cities. Varel felt a ripple of unease travel along his dorsal ridge. He had reviewed the integration protocols. Predator-prey pairing was to be minimized among juveniles until basic socialization bonds were formed. The Kherathi cub should not have been seated beside the human, especially not unsupervised. But the damage was done. Rax had chosen the seat. And the human girl had not moved. Varel entered the classroom. "Students," he said, his voice modulated to a calm harmonic, "welcome to your first cycle of shared civilizations." No one responded immediately, because all eyes were fixed on the third row. Mara Alvarez was small by most species standards. Dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. Limbs compact and solid, like all Terran juveniles raised under one standard gravity. Her hands rested on the desk, fingers relaxed. Rax sat upright beside her. Not crowding, not posturing, simply present. The Kherathi cub's nostrils flared once. Mara turned her head slightly and met its gaze. Predators across the Concord understood eye contact as dominance. Among the Kherathi, unbroken stare between rivals could precede violence in under a heartbeat. Mara blinked. "Hi," she said. Her translator rendered the word in soft harmonic pulses. Rax's ears twitched. The cub tilted its head. "I am Rax," it replied after a moment. Its voice was deeper than expected for its size. "You do not smell like prey." A ripple of horrified whispers moved through the class. Varel stiffened. Mara considered this gravely. "Thanks," she said. "You don't smell like dinner either." Several students gasped outright. Rax's eyes narrowed. Then, unexpectedly, the cub's tail gave a slow, thoughtful sweep behind its chair. Varel began the lesson immediately, hoping to redirect the room's focus before instinct overtook civility. He spoke of the Concord's founding, of cooperation between radically different biologies, of trust. But throughout the lecture, he watched. Rax did not lean toward Mara, did not bare its teeth, did not bristle. Instead, the cub observed her with a curious intensity usually reserved for studying terrain before a hunt. Mara, for her part, took notes. At midpoint break, chaos erupted. Juveniles clustered in species-familiar groups, exchanging scents and chirps and cautious glances. The avian Drelly moved as a flock to the far corner. The herbivorous Moltari positioned themselves between pillars. And Rax stood. The classroom froze again. The cub stretched, muscles rippling beneath dense fur, and turned. Not toward the smallest prey species. Not toward the exit, but toward Mara. "You will accompany me," Rax stated. It wasn't phrased as a question. Varel half rose from his platform. Mara pushed back her chair. "Okay," she said. They walked together toward the hydration dispensers at the back wall. No one else moved. Varel activated his private comm, ready to summon security. At the dispenser, Rax lowered its head slightly. "You are not afraid," the cub observed. Mara filled a cup. "Should I be? I am Kherathi. I'm human." Rax blinked. "That designation carries no immediate threat assessment." Mara smiled faintly. "It usually does eventually." The cub considered this with unsettling seriousness. "You smell of iron," Rax said. "Yeah, humans do that." "Your heart rate remains steady." "I grew up with 3 older brothers," she replied. "You're not that scary." For the first time, Varel saw genuine confusion flicker across the Predator's face. On Khera, fear was currency. It shaped hierarchy. It defined survival. Mara handed Rax a cup of water. The cub stared at it. "You are offering resource without contest. It's just water." Rax accepted the cup carefully, claws retracting with deliberate control. Across the room, Varel lowered his hand from the comm. He did not understand what he was witnessing. But he knew something had shifted. By the 3rd cycle, rumors had spread through the academy. The Kherathi cub and the human girl shared notes. Shared meals. Shared silence. Rax no longer scanned the room for weakness. Instead, the cub scanned for Mara when entering. And Mara always waved. Varel reviewed the footage nightly, searching for signs of manipulation or predatory strategy. He found none. Instead, he found moments like this. A Moltari juvenile dropping its datapad in the corridor. Before it could retrieve it, a larger avian student swooped low, instinctively asserting dominance over the smaller herbivore. Rax moved first. A blur of muscle and fur. The avian shrieked and leapt back as the Kherathi cub placed itself between predator and prey. Claws extended, not to strike, but to warn. The message was clear. Not this one. The avian retreated. The Moltari trembled in confusion. "Why?" Varel later asked Rax privately. The cub's ears angled backward, a sign of discomfort. Mara said the Moltari fears loud wings. Rax replied. "She does not like fear in our pack." Varel stared. "Your pack?" Rax's gaze did not waver. "She sits beside me." On Khera, proximity in youth often forged lifelong hunting bonds. Varel felt the implications settle heavily. "You have chosen her," he said quietly. "Yes." "Why?" Rax hesitated. "She does not react as prey," the cub said at last. "She does not challenge as predator. She evaluates." Varel thought of Earth's long evolutionary crucible. Of a species forged in relentless environmental hostility. "And that intrigues you." "It steadies me," Rax admitted. The incident that changed everything came in the 8th cycle. A seismic tremor rippled through Harmon Prime. The city had been constructed atop stabilized tectonic plates, but no system was flawless. Warning klaxons blared as structural dampeners activated. In the academy, lights flickered. Several juveniles panicked instantly. The Drelly flock scattered in chaotic spirals. The Moltari froze. A support beam along the north wall fractured with a deafening crack. Varel shouted for evacuation protocols. But gravity lurched unexpectedly. Harmon Prime's delicate gravitic regulators struggling against the tremor. Students stumbled. One of the smaller chitinous younglings fell hard near the compromised beam. And the beam began to fall. Varel moved. He was too far. Rax was closer. The cub did not hesitate. With a roar that reverberated through the chamber, Rax lunged, not away from danger, but toward it. Claws dug into the flooring for traction under unstable gravity. Muscles bunched. The beam crashed down. Rax caught it. The impact drove the cub to one knee. A strangled snarl tore from its throat as weight far beyond juvenile capacity pressed downward. Across the room, Mara shoved two Moltari clear of debris. "Move," she shouted at the frozen students. Varel reached the fallen youngling and dragged it to safety. "Rax," he called. The cub's limbs trembled violently. Claws carved furrows into the floor. Mara was suddenly there. She didn't try to lift the beam. Instead, she braced herself against Rax's side, shoulder to shoulder. "Breathe," she said sharply. "Don't lock up. Shift your stance." Rax's eyes rolled toward her. "On three," Mara continued. "We push and roll. 1, 2, 3. Together, they moved. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't perfectly calculated, but it worked. The beam tipped just enough for Varel to activate an emergency gravitic pulse. The weight lessened. Rax collapsed backward, chest heaving. Mara dropped beside the cub. "You okay?" she demanded. "I am not prey," Rax rasped. She grinned despite the chaos. "Good." Evacuation teams arrived moments later. No fatalities. Minor injuries only, but the story spread faster than official reports could contain it. The Kherathi cub had shielded the smallest in the room, and the human had stood beside the predator without flinching. In the aftermath, Varel reviewed everything again. The first day, the silence, the seat chosen. He realized his mistake with painful clarity. He had assumed the greatest danger in the classroom was the predator. He had categorized the human girl as potential victim, or at best, unpredictable variable. He had been wrong. The danger had never been between them. It had been in underestimating what happens when two Deathworld lineages recognize each other. Not as threat, but as equal. On the 10th cycle, Varel addressed the class. "Civilizations are not built on sameness," he began. "They are built on decision." He gestured toward the third row. "On the first day, I believed a grave error had occurred. A predator beside a Deathworlder." Soft laughter rippled now, fond, not fearful. "But I have learned," Varel continued, "that sometimes instinct sees what policy does not." Rax sat upright, tail still. Mara leaned back casually in her chair. "The Kherathi choose hunting partners for life," Varel said. "It is not done lightly." Rax's gaze flicked to Mara. "She did not choose me because she was unafraid," the cub said suddenly, voice carrying clearly. "She chose. Because she assessed and found me acceptable." Mara shrugged. "You looked lonely." A ripple of amused sound moved through the room. Varel inclined his head. "And you, Mara Alvarez of Earth?" She met his gaze steadily. "Predators aren't the scariest thing where I'm from," she said. "Being alone is." Silence followed that. Not tense, not fearful, but thoughtful. Varel felt something profound settle over the classroom, an understanding that transcended biology. On that first day, the predator had chosen the Deathworlder. But in truth, the choice had gone both ways. Across the Concord, species would analyze the footage for cycles to come. Military strategists would note the synergy between Kherathi strength and human adaptability. Sociologists would debate the implications. But Varel would remember something simpler. A cub sitting down beside a girl who did not move away. A hand offering water without fear. A shoulder braced against impossible weight. The day the Predator chose the Deathworlder was not the day danger entered the classroom. It was the day the future did. And this time, the teacher understood it before it was too late. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.